Hello.
Hello. Let me throw in another reminder to Slack. Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Hey, how's it
Liko.
go?
Hi, everyone.
Hey, thanks.
Hello.
Hey, Greg.
Just a quick note that I'm sort of in two PTG sessions at once. Really popular time slot. So both of the communities I help and assist with things are doing their sessions right now. So please shout my name multiple times if there's anything that you need specifically from me. I'll try to focus more on the 4.0 conversation at the beginning. That is an important one.
I guess that means we need someone else to be screen sharing. Do you want me to try and do that?
I think I should be able to do that. I joined the other session from my phone.
Oh, okay.
So let me try. If something happens in the meantime. Oh my God, I need to find the right. There you go. I have multiple browser windows with multiple tabs open, but I hope that you all see the Kata PTG session agenda. Please let me know if
Yes.
not.
Yeah, I can do.
So I
Awesome.
can see it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll figure out how to keep the PTG bot updated in the meantime. I think we have a bit more people at the start compared to yesterday. I did throw in a quick reminder into Slack that this session is going. Oh, there it is. I'll just throw in the Etherpad link into the chat as well. Let me know when you all feel that we are ready. I think we have a good representation of the AC. Also, if y'all haven't seen, the new AC has just been announced. We had a withdrawal all. So now we had 3 candidates for 3 seats, and none of the rules and criteria were violated. So we announced the new AC, where we have a new AC member, Aurelian Bombo, who is out this week. So he will come back next week to some good news. And also congratulations to Fupan and Greg, who are returning AC members this round. All the updates on GitHub and Slack are on their way. Do you all know about anyone who wanted to make it to this slot but couldn't or is not here yet? Or are you all ready to start today's sessions?
I think we can probably go ahead.
Okay. So we said that we will start with the 4.0 update and Outlook today. And then we will see when we can get to the CI conversation with regard to what's next for CI. And I did chat with Tobin in the Coco channel yesterday a little bit. He said that he thinks he should be able to make it to the 1300 UTC slot on Thursday. So we are trying to reserve that for the Coco join session, or at least some parts of it. And then if there's any overflow from the CI conversation, we can hopefully finish that as well on Thursday. So with that, I'm happy to transition into the 4.0 conversation. Let me see what happens if I do this. Okay. So we do have a GitHub project that lists a few things about 4.0. We did talk about 4.0 during the last BTG session as well. And I think there were a few things around the runtimes and Coco integration and this and that to figure out before being able to announce and release the next major one. So I thought that it would be good to check on the progress and plans now that we have a half year past, just to see what are the goals that still stand. Is there anything that has changed? Are there any blockers to make a 4.0 a reality, not this year, but hopefully next year maybe? Any plans on time frame, since it's been a little while since 3.0 was released. So what do you all think?
So I guess one thing we talked about in the AC a few weeks back that I don't know if we have got captured on the project board is TEE support in runtime RS. So in the Go runtime, there is some specific code for dealing with AMD SEV, AMD SMP, Intel TDX, and IBM Secure Execution, which nothing has come across. That's the platform that Coco is built on, and there was kind of a request for people representing those teams to go away and understand the priority, but I don't think we've heard back from anyone what the outcome of that was. And that's certainly a significant obstacle from being able to unify from unify on the runtime. So I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if we've got anyone who can comment specifically on that TE support, but I think we at least need, yeah, I guess I'd be interested what other people think, but I think we need some sort of understanding and potentially agreement on that. This might blend into tomorrow's session as well, I guess, with the Coco joint session. But there's folks who are more close to the day-to-day runtime RS stuff, like Fupan, Powell, and stuff, who can probably share more updates or more specifics on how progress is going and what's remaining.
As far as I know, folks in a group, I'm not sure if there are anyone who is working on it, but Gary, are they still working on the Coco project? I guess I remember they have a plan for the runtime RS key support and also all the Coco support stuff there.
So I would say the basic QEMU support in runtime RS seems fairly complete. Most tests seem to be passing. There are some known shortcomings. vCPU allocation comes to mind, but those are not major problems. So unless I hear from someone that the QEMU support in the Rust runtime is lacking something specific, I kind of consider it in a good shape. So what's like, to my knowledge, what seems to be missing is the sandbox API support we mentioned last time. Fupan has been working on it, and I think it's in a good shape as well. VFIO devices support for QEMU in the Rust runtime was submitted by Alex, is under review. So I guess we're at least on the way, in a fairly good shape as well. The remote hypervisor support that exists in the Go runtime, but does not exist in the Rust runtime, is also underway. Here, it looks like there is still some more work to do, but at least some preliminary framework is being reviewed, as far as I know. So, and that's pretty much it as far as I know.
So in terms of, you mentioned QEMU support fairly complete. Do we have kind of rough, obviously the Cocoa stuff aside, but do we have rough parity in CI coverage for the Rust QEMU runtime or runtime class and the Go one? Do you know?
So I have no direct interaction with CI. So and perhaps Fabiano or Weiner could have more detailed information. Last time I heard, it seemed that the same tests that run in CI for QEMU in the Go runtime seem to be mostly running for the Rust runtime as well and passing. And there are some disabled tests, like the vCPU allocation that I mentioned before. But last time I heard, CI tests that pass for Go runtime and QEMU seem to be mostly passing for Rust runtime and QEMU.
Cool.
Yeah, that's correct. We are, well, we are running only the Kubernetes tests on both the Go and the Rust runtimes, and as Pavel mentioned, do some difference in the vCPU's policy. We had to disable some tests, but in most of them are passing. But the other suites and even the metric CI, we are not running for the runtime RS. So we should probably review the scope of the test that we are running today and see if we want to increase the coverage or not.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it looks like, just a quick look on the dashboard, I think we have six test jobs for QEMU runtime RS and 23 for QEMU. So
Yeah.
there is obviously quite a lot which aren't covered on both. Whether they all need to be, I think is an open question. But yeah, I think, as you say, Vino, probably need to look. There is some like basic stuff like you said, the metrics test, the monitor tests, nerd cuddle tests, NIDAS tests, Docker tests.
VFIO tracing. So
yeah,
there is a
container
bunch of
stability. Yeah, so yeah, there's a fair number on there that we might want to try and get towards equivalence. Just hopefully we won't find problems, but just so we can. And then there's obviously the Cocoa ones, which are a separate issue.
So I would encourage anyone who knows about a feature that QEMU needs to support and suspects that it doesn't, to let me know, because I've historically I've had trouble getting requirements, both from upstream community and, curiously enough, also inside Red Hat. So just let me know if you know there might be a shortcoming. Let me know.
So in terms of architecture support, I think Troy's been working with you, Power, on the QEMU runtime RS stuff. So I think we've got S390 and AMD 64, but I guess there isn't any PVC or ARM support, or is that accurate?
Yeah, that is accurate. Obviously, I'm working on Intel, and thanks to Choi, S390 has been covered. I don't know if it's complete at this moment, but it's being taken care of. Other architectures are not.
Cool. That's that's what I was expecting. Just wanted to confirm, and I'm certainly not saying that you're responsible for doing those architectures. Just good to understand where we might potentially have gaps, and I guess they are similar to the TE support, but there are specific hardware maintainers that do have specialist support. So I guess that comes under that bucket that we'd need buy-in.
Yes, exactly. It's precisely the same problem as with TEEs. It's not like I refuse to work on, say, ARM. The problem is that I have no access to an ARM machine, so I have no way of testing. That's the problem.
Yep, understood.
Is this something that we can use some of the donated hardware for, by the way? I think we still have like 2 ARM machines or something that we use for CI and things.
So in my
Yeah.
view, it would probably be preferable for multiple reasons if architectures are taken care of by folks who are familiar with them. If that can be done, then we might start thinking about other solutions. Maybe even if the requisite support is complete in the Go runtime, it might be even possible to just port it, though I would consider that less than optimal. Yeah, but ideally, I think we need folks who are familiar with the architectures and have access to contribute support if at all possible.
And Anastasios might be able to correct me, but I don't think we even have any CI testing for ARM on the Go runtime at the moment. I think we build the payloads and we obviously release them, and there's kind of static checks and stuff, but I don't think we have any E2E tests running. I think we used to have them when we were Jenkins based, but they got a bit stale and haven't been re-implemented because I don't know if the large ARM builders have been set up for virtualization support yet.
Yes, so there is this issue with the nested thing that we cannot run the tests on the builder on a VM on the bare metal machine, but I think that the bare metal machines do run end-to-end tests. I will have to check. I'll get back to you about that.
Yeah, Cool. And yeah, it's probably worth us trying to maybe this is more of CI discussion, but yeah, I think Fabiano had some ideas about potentially being able to partition, because I think the ARM builders, the ARM VMs runners, whatever you want to call them, are pretty large. I've got a lot of cores, so I think he had some suggestions about partitioning them and being able to use some as bare metal runners, like we do. The Coco tests and the S390X tests are run bare metal with K3S to set up, and similar to set up Kubernetes and stuff. So there's potentially an approach we can take there. But yeah, I guess in the absence of coverage, that might be something that we might, depending on what the state is, it might be good to say, oh, well, can we start with runtime RS in CI testing for ARM rather than going back to Go. But I guess it depends if there is any support in the first place for ARM that would need adding. So I guess one of the other features we talked about, which I think is on that project board, is Container D 2.0 and whether we think that is linked, and that might be something that Bupan can provide more info on, because I think from when I looked at the Sandbox API, I think there is a difference between the 1.7 experimental support and the 2.0 support. And in general, the experimental features, I know from a Coco side of things, we've had some problems with them. And when we've reached out to the Container D team, they've said, well, they're experimental, so we're not going to touch them on 1.7 until they're in a 2.0 release. So I don't know if people think that stuff like Sandbox APIs, we should be trying to bump to 2.0 as part of the 4.0 release to get better stability. And I don't know if anyone has had a chance to look into it much more.
I had asked Alex to communicate with some community guys to ask when they will be release the 2.0 release.
Yeah, that is also a very good point. Container D 2 hasn't quite come out yet. I think they have started moving features which were in the 2.1 release out into the in the 2.0 release out into the 2.1 milestone. So I feel like they are getting close. But yeah, that is a good point.
Yes.
But I guess so far from what we've seen, is there significant API changes on features like Sandbox API between 1.7 and 2.0, or have we not? Is it a bit too early?
Are there any other bigger areas where there is a requirement that is currently not met?
I was looking at this. I just pasted in the chat this old issue that has a table comparing features. Seems not updated, but maybe we can go through the items that at that time we didn't have support to check if now we have it, or even if we will need to support. So it seems a very nice table with features that maybe we can discuss it.
Yeah, I was just about to suggest the same thing. So thanks. Thanks. And Kevin did ask about ARM support on that, the bottom
Yeah.
of that list as well, which prompted me to think about it.
One that come to my mind, for example, remote hypervisor. Is it still being developed? Or
Yeah, so Paul did mention that earlier, that is tracked on the other board and it sounds like it's in early review stages. So there's a PR 10225 for that, which is linked. So
cool. This is updated on the table. Cool.
yeah, so I guess maybe it depends if we want to continue using this, but it might be that we want to add a new table for like hardware specific support. So, and have S390X ARM, power, secure execution, TDX, SMP, SEV, etc. on there. But yeah, I'm not sure if people still find this issue useful as a guide or a tracking guide, or we want to move over to just the project board and spin out any issues for those remaining pieces.
To be honest, I prefer this table better than the dashboard on the project board. But yeah, maybe we could clone this into a new issue, so we start a kind of fresh discussion, but we can link the two issues together. Can clean
I
up
think
some
we could
stuff.
just edit it in place. I don't know if we need a
Yep.
separate one, just because at least a few of us know where it is. But yeah, we just might need to get a few more updates. It looks like Alex is actively doing some updates, which is great. But like Swanko, probably after the last PTG, because it's April timeframe, put some suggestions for GPU features and stuff. So trying to see if they are needed, or some of them I believe were never in the Go runtime, so they're not wouldn't be a blocker to runtime RS adoption. So, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Better than mine.
I think most people with write access should be able to edit, and obviously we can ask Alex if he wants to still control the editing of that, but otherwise we could add a new section for like hardware support and CI jobs or something. That might be a good thing to, if we enumerate all of the QEMU CI jobs we have, like we talked about, metrics, container stability, that sort of thing, then we could also have the status of that in this table, in this issue, if people think that would be helpful.
Yeah, leave this as a action to me. I can create that table for CI.
Cool.
Here.
Also, do we have a way of making sure that no new features are added to the Go runtime unless they are also added to the rest runtime, so that we avoid this like patch up or whack-a-mole where we're closing gaps, but in the Go runtime, in the meantime, other stuff is being added that might create problems for switching to the rest runtime as the default runtime.
So I don't think we do have a way, and I guess it's kind of difficult whilst the Go runtime is still the default. Then, like, and we don't have wide support. So, for example, there's not a lot of Cocoa support, and not. I don't know that there's many or significant changes to the shim for Cocoa. This is just an example. If there was a new feature required that the Go runtime wanted for well Cocoa wanted in the shim, it doesn't really have a choice but to put it in the Go runtime at the moment. So I don't know how we would go and say, no, you're not allowed to do any development, because it's not that the Go runtime is deprecated at the moment. It's still the default runtime. But I do understand the challenges. If we keep on adding more features to Go, it makes closing that gap more difficult. But yeah, I don't know if any of the other reviewers and stuff are aware of lots of changes that have gone into, or features that have gone into the Go runtime. I don't think I am, but
I'll just mention that for some time after the initial rest runtime introduction, first at least half a year, maybe a year, basically anytime you contributed to the Go runtime, you were required by review, basically, to contribute the same to the rest runtime. Then at some point it got dropped. I don't know exactly when or why. I assume that it was due to the confidential containers stuff. But we did have that in place for quite a long time, I think.
yeah. So it's not scientific, but looking through the commits on the runtime folder, it looks like they are all Cocoa related, basically. I mean, there's not hundreds, but in the last kind of 6 months, there's a few VFIO ones. But other than that, they're all TDX, SMP, remote hypervisor support, and yeah, they look to be them, and some Go VMM ones, which I think was just dropping support for some stuff. So I don't think the gap is getting significantly bigger. But yeah, we obviously don't want it to grow massively.
Yeah, Steve, I've added the init data annotation stuff.
Oh yes, good idea. Yeah, I did. Sorry, I glossed over that as being Cocoa support, but yes, that's right, Greg. Thanks. That is a gap. Which shouldn't be, as you've seen, shouldn't be a significantly difficult thing to port over, and we don't really have a way to exercise it yet on the Go on the restaurant time. But yeah, that's worth thinking about on the gaps list. So I will add it to the diff list.
Should we I don't know what's the best way, or if this issue with the table is linked to the GitHub project that we have for 4.0. But if it's not linked to that yet, should we link the two together? Or
Yeah, I guess we could. I think the distinction we discussed in vPTG that I tried to remember last time was the issue is kind of listing all of the differences, but we said some of those differences are not necessarily blockers to switching over or to releasing with the Rust runtime as a default. So I think the idea was the GitHub project was supposed to be the subset that we had to do in order to successfully be ready for 4.0. So whilst we could potentially we could add the diff issue into that release project. I don't think we necessarily have to have all of those gaps closed. I don't know if that makes sense as a distinction.
it does make sense. It's just it kind of sounded like that people want to keep using that table, and I'm not sure, like, just looking at this table, like, does it look like everything is listed here? Or if not, then how do people know what is needed for a 4.0 versus what is something that is like a wish list item or nice to have? Or
So I think that's where we probably want to update the table and then say these are required and break out an issue for those, which we then add to this backlog. So, for example, I'll pick TDX support. We would, if we add the table of runtime supports in here, then we would break out an issue and say, which might be a very generic high level issue, but be add TDX support to runtime RS, and the same for the other TEs and other hardware. And then we would add a link to the issue on the table, but they'd also show up on this backlog. And then I guess it's up for potentially us as a community to review and say, oh yeah, we do, this is important, therefore we'll spin out an issue and track it. Or if we go, okay, so an example, which I'll pick at random from the list, vCPU pinning, we might go, oh, vCPU pinning isn't supported on the runtime RS at the moment, but that is not a blocker for us, therefore we won't move it over. But it's good to still track, because I assume we would still want to try and close some of these gaps anyway, but doesn't need to be a prerequisite for 4.0. I don't know if that approach makes sense to others.
what do others think? It sounds like that there are no objections. Is this something that you all are expecting to happen organically, or do we have anyone to take an action item to drive the conversation on what is a blocker for 4.0 and what is not?
So I think I think there's some stuff that we can organically do, or we can break down. Like we already have a task on the backlog for CI coverage. So like Viner was volunteered to make a table of jobs. So yeah, number 7 on that list. So it is kind of logical that we could break that down. That's a very high level generic. So we could break it down and or move the table into here, into this issue potentially, or something like that, to track it. And I think it sounds like I think we agreed this on the last vPTG that we do want the CI coverage before switching over. We want it to be on parity with some. If features have been excluded, then obviously there might be some skipped tests. But yeah, the other features, I think we do need a conversation, which maybe it's like the vPTG, but it sounds like we're not quite ready to have that that conversation. So maybe it can be something we have either offline or on AC meetings. But I think, yeah, ensuring that the enumeration of the gaps is up to date, and then the ones that we know are blockers, which we already did, and Alex has done a good job and already created that with some of them, but we might want to just re-review. So it might be that all of the currently tracked features have already been decided are not mandatory, but there's some that I would potentially expect to have a conversation about, like, yeah, like I don't know if so we have issues created for SE Linux and seccomp, but I don't know if they've not been added to the project board, and I don't know if that's was deliberately or not. So I guess, yeah, some discussion there would be useful.
I gave the action item to the AC.
Yep, that makes sense.
Sounded like a fair thing to do. Okay. Anything else that comes to mind that like the tables don't cover and we haven't talked about that should be on the radar for 4.0 and it's not marked listed anywhere yet? Is there any obstacle that anyone sees with implementing anything that you all talked about so far? I mean, other than having people to do the work and it will take time. But is there anything that blocks getting any of these done?
Yeah, I think it's that kind of vendor buying is probably the main challenge. Like if, for example, one of the hardware vendors said we have no interest in working on supporting runtime RS, what what is what approach do we as a community take? Do we just, yeah, I don't know, if we just go, oh, in that case you're on Go runtime, but we don't plan to maintain it, or like, yeah, I think there is a discussion about it's all well and good us saying we want parity, and until we've got parity or close to parity for important features, we don't want to switch over. But if some of the specifics there is no interest from the maintainers there, then I think we will need to reevaluate. I'm hoping that won't be the case, but the call did go out at an AC meeting, and I don't think we've heard back. But maybe we need to re-raise that, or specifically mention it on that Cocoa session, as we talked about earlier.
Yes, I fully agree with that. That seems to me the only actual risk. The other stuff is basically on us. We can implement it. I can implement it. Someone else can implement it, but with the architecture support and TEs, that seems a potential bottleneck.
Any comments from anyone or anything else that anyone can think of? I also wanted to touch a little bit on time frame. Like, is 4.0 something that you all see happen in 2025? Would that be a goal for the community to make it happen in 2025? Or is it something that is not a priority for Kata right now to commit to?
I think we would want to see it happen in 2025. Not necessarily for the sake of just having a 4.0 release, but I think it's the features we've talked about are important, and reconciling the dual runtime situation, the longer that we keep going with 2 runtimes is just gonna cause more challenges and more duplicated work. Whether all of those aspects are in our control, like Containerd 2.0, I really hope that all of the features will be stable in it by the end of 2025. But there's certain features from that Containerd were promising us for Cocoa in 2021, and we've still not seen them yet. So, but
Do others agree, or are there any different opinions or any question?
I really agree. And maybe we should be a little more aggressive with the dates, like trying to set the next checkpoint on first half of or first quarter of 2025, something like that. Of course, we need to be realistic, but would be nice if we could be more aggressive on the dates. Otherwise, it won't happen.
I guess a question which probably I think is to Jens and co, because they're the only relevant people on the call, is what downstream's take on Go versus Rust runtime is, and if it's something that you would be looking to pick up as soon as 4.0 switched, or if you would, because just to be clear, in 4.0 we're talking about switching to runtime RS being the default runtime, but I don't think we would delete or remove the Go runtime or anything like that for at least a release cycle. So it'd be interesting to know, and I know folks like Microsoft and stuff aren't here to talk about it, but it would be interesting to know what downstream's plans were if they were planning to stick on Go runtime beyond the 4.0 release, or they're keen to move to the Rust runtime soon. Or not decided yet.
Greg, correct me if I say something wrong, but from my point of view, you know, Pavel is continuing to work from our side on the Rust runtime. On QM support, we will probably, or for the next year, will still need to go shim with the existing support there to support our customers, show demos and POCs based on the Go shim. But at the same time, in parallel, we see that the Rust runtime is something that we want to work or need to work on. So we'll do both in parallel. But yeah, bottom line, I think, is that from our downstream point of view, we have an interest in keeping the Go runtime around and maintained for, let's say, at least until we all agree that the Rust runtime support is on par with what we need from, I don't know, does that make sense?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense, Jens. That's what we discussed before, so yeah.
But I think that's potentially a good driver, is understanding what the downstreams, and that might help us when we're trying to classify features of mandatory or not, is the input from downstream. What would it, maybe it's not the right question or not exactly the right way, but what would it take for you to want to move to runtime RS, or what's the feature that would need to be complete? And it might be that the answer is we just want time. We want to see it being stable upstream for a long time. That's absolutely fine, but that might help us in the discussion if there was, for instance, like remote hypervisor support might be an obvious one. And you go, well,
Yeah.
until remote hypervisor support is in, that it's a no-brainer. So that might help us classify things between what's a blocker, because we could have a 4.0 release, but if nobody wants to use the Rust runtime in it, then and everyone from downstream wants to still stay, I don't think you'd necessarily need to stay back level, because the Go runtime would still be in there. Then not necessarily we're wasting our time, but it doesn't align necessarily that well as a community. Hope that makes sense.
I, again, from my point of view, as you said, remote hypervisor support is, I think, something that we definitely would need, and will also work on. And eventually, goal is to run confidential containers for sure. That's something I think that we definitely need. But are also willing to help with, of course, as part of the community with CI and whatever it takes.
Yeah, and sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that yet. So it was just a general principle. When we're trying to classify them, getting inputs from downstream would be useful, and we definitely do appreciate as a community that Red Hat and people at Power have been working a lot on this runtime RS, particularly QEMU. So we're definitely appreciative of that support.
Yeah, I just wanted to share. I think it's good to be open on these things. Yeah.
Okay, we technically have 2 minutes left from the scheduled slot for 4.0. beyond what we already discussed, what else comes to mind that you all want to and can hash out about 4.0 here today? Any further action items, next steps?
Yeah, I think it's, as we've said, the actions, it's updating those diffs. So if you give me the action item that lines up with Finance one about the CI to add hardware support on that issue, and then I think it's just we need to drive that as the AC to ensure we classify what are blockers and what are not.
Sounds good. Anything else?
I like that idea of running a survey for checking with the downstream users the features that they needed, they can live without in this initial switch to the runtime Rust. So if we could have someone in charge of running this survey and reaching to the downstream consumers, it would be nice.
So I guess,
So
yeah, that would be a
we
phase. Sorry, Anna. That would
no,
be a
no,
phase once we've got those features enumerated. That will be input to that AC conversation about what are blockers. So yeah, it's good idea.
I give myself the action item to work with the AC and community to figure out what should go into the survey. What else?
Is there anything that currently is blocking the progress of features being merged, like reviews or CI or just the normal problems that we have? I mean, is there anything specific regarding the Rust runtime that we should be caring about or improving?
I'd say, yeah, reviews.
Reviews.
Yeah, a lot of PRs waiting for weeks or even longer. Pavel can talk about that as well, but also for other contributions.
Yeah, that is true. I'm not gonna talk about it because I'd be on the topic for hours and hours. But I would also say that the CI coverage would make us more confident that we're where we think we are.
Great, cool.
When it comes to the reviews and CI coverage, things like that, like, would it be helpful if it was like, I don't know, set priority by the AC or something, that this is the community focus for the next, I don't know, quarter or something, to get the reviews in and fix the CI coverage and just enable further work to come in on top of those?
Yeah, I like the idea of having um, having some goals around this. And yeah, maybe CI coverage would be a good goal to start with. And maybe that's links back to Biden's suggestion of that checkpoint is whether once we've, I guess we've maybe got a flow, we've got list out all of the diffs, make them up to date, try and categorize what are blockers, what are not, and then try and pick some goals based on that. I guess the challenge we have, which any open source project has, is you can set goals you want, but if you don't have people available to work on them, then like if we'd have had this conversation of what would be the goals in what I think we did in the last vPTG, we sort of tentatively said we would like to have closed the gaps by and be talking about release by this sort of time. And it's easy to talk about goals, but when people are working on lots of different projects and upstream and downstream, it is a challenge. But at least I guess if we've got some priorities, then people might be able to sign up to pick some of those up.
I understand, and that's why I kind of brought up the topic again. If we need to, and if the AC needs to put more effort into saying, like, re-articulating the goals to the community, set some priorities for reviews that these need to be attended to. Yeah, so just kind of, it's one thing to talk about things at the PTG, for example, but how to keep reiterating on things after the event, like how to help the community to stay on track with things that we kind of agreed that should be done. And to me, based on the conversation, it sounds like that the getting progress with the dual runtime support and eventually not having dual runtime support, but only having one runtime to maintain and develop further would help the community at large. So it sounds like that it is in the interest of the community. So having a little bit of pain to sort that out, hopefully faster, could then be beneficial on the long run.
Yep, I think it's worth trying.
Okay. Any other blockers that come to mind that people wanted to bring up before we close this section of the conversation? Or anything else that is 4.0 related?
Not for me right now.
Okay, it sounds like that we got everything out about the topic that the community had in mind. So that is great. And we, let's say, only 7 minutes past the planned hour. So we have the session until the top of the hour, which is technically 52 minutes. Can people function for 52 minutes longer without a break, or do you all want to have a break before we transition into the CI conversation?
I'm happy to go ahead.
Yeah, I think we can continue.
Okay. Weiner, do you have anything to share? Do you want me to stop sharing my screen, or should I just open
Yeah,
it to?
I don't have any formal presentation, but I can share my screen.
Okay. You should be able to do that now.
Okay, so probably you guys can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. On the last PTG, we had a few discussions about CI. And based on those discussions, we come up with this initiative that we call the Taylor Bird. We set some goals, and since then we have been working on those goals. So what I wanted to do now is I don't want to have this initiative running forever. So I do like to close it by providing you a brief report about what we did it and what is we missed, and open for maybe thoughts about what is next in terms of CI. So basically, I want to close this initiative and perhaps open a new one. Maybe someone other than me could be leading a new initiative. So yeah, that's the informal agenda for this session. Let's start it by looking at the Taylor Bird goals and see what we did and what we missed basically. So we set these 4 goals, which are on this table. The first one was about gathering data to understand the jobs that we had failing too much or unstable. We had this complaint about CI not being stable, and it's still not stable. But at that time, we didn't have much ideas about what could be our focus. And then regarding this goal, we started by having a script to collect data out of the nightly jobs. And we, at least on the Coco CI meeting, we started looking at the results of those nightlies to figure out the jobs that we could be improving, fixing, removing. So not executing until we had a fix for them. And from this initial script, we come up with the idea of having a dashboard. And finally, we have the first implementation of the dashboard. I don't know if everyone is aware of, but yes, we have a much more nice dashboard for the CI. Maybe I can show it now. Steve, do you know the URL by hand? It's
I'll post it in
yeah,
the Zoom chat. It's kata-containers.github.io. So it depends if you can type it faster than
containers. It's not in my
.github.io.
Oh, it's here. So yeah, thanks, Steve. So this is the dashboard and that we have been using, as I said, on Coco CI. We have been using it to understand the jobs that are unstable, and we use it to drive actions. Okay, this is the maybe we can talk about what is next in CI, but the thing is that there is now a team that Aurelia is leading, a team of students on Boston University that they are going to, and they are improving this dashboard and providing more features. Anyway, I think if we not fully met this goal, we are close to have a very nice dashboard that we can use on our next analysis and our next work on towards improving the CI of Kata containers. A little bit related with that, another goal was to have a look at the jobs in the tests by using this the data that we gathered and started fixing, disabling the jobs. Unfortunately, as far as I know, we didn't spend too much time on fixing most of the jobs. What I did was I started looking at the data, and jobs that were failing more than 50% in 10 runs, I started disable them. And I came up with a list of issues with the jobs that I disabled. I don't know exactly how many, but it was a bunch of. And now I think that we need to discuss what to do about those jobs. If we should try to fix them and put back to the CI, or maybe some of those jobs makes no sense anymore, and we can simply drop them. We also, I think that for those that we want to fix, we should be finding managers or owners for those jobs, maintainers for those jobs. This is again something that we should be discussing for the next CI. Anyway, this is something that we also made as part of this Taylor Bird initiative. And for one day, I think only one day, right, Steve, we had a green CI. So all the jobs on the nightly run, and they all passed it. And it was the first and maybe last time that we saw the whole CI green. And by the way, Taylor bird is a kind of bird. It's a bird that it's almost green. That he has some yellow parts, and so this is the reason behind the name. So yeah, I think that we partially achieved that goal. There is this part of fixing the jobs, because it's not, we should not just disable them when we think that they are unsafe. We should really look for ways of fixing and putting back those jobs to the CI. Another thing that I'd like to mention is regarding the optimization of the jobs, and this was something that Lukash worked for us, and he led this, he proposed this. I don't know if is Lukash here? I don't know if you want to go ahead and make some comments. Sorry for surprising you.
Hi, folks. So yeah, the basic infrastructure is basically there. It wasn't as straightforward as I thought. But so in the end, I used maybe an ugly hack, basically a Python script that looks at all the running GitHub actions that are running for the current pull request, and can query for its statuses. Then it compares the name, it matches the workflow /name for entries in a YAML file that is stored in GitHub inside the Kata project. Yet in here, the required jobs, and it allows not just individual names, as you can see on line 26, 27, 28, but you can also add regexps. So if we know that, for example, all Kata containers run basic AMD tests should pass, you can use regular expression for it. And if you know that there are some issues, you can enumerate the tests as is done currently in GitHub interface, but you can see the history in Git, so that would be another benefit. If it finds a test that failed, it interrupts and finishes this gatekeeper task as failed, and it will give you a list of tests that are still running and that failed and were not supposed to fail in the output. So you can instead of like going through the list on GitHub, you can just look into this gatekeeper task, and you can get the failed task that like failed it immediately. It should be easier. One more thing, for certain tasks, you need a given label. So again, if the task is not labeled yet, you'll get an output from Gatekeeper that, yeah, it failed because this pull request is not yet labeled with the appropriate flag, and it will give you the label again. So once it's labeled, the Gatekeeper runs again and checks for all, like waits for all the jobs or workflows to finish, and let you know if like all those passed, it will give you the pass afterwards. Note that currently the required tests, that was just an example. It doesn't reflect what are the actual required tests. So ideally, if somebody who has access to settings on Kata containers and can see the required test in a better way than me, you can send a pull request to update the required tests. But I mean, I'll probably take a look at it. I actually started on it already, but if anybody has opinions on how to better lay out them, you can do it, because the second benefit of this work is not just to have those required tests in code, but the biggest benefit of this should be that you can group different kinds of tests. So for example, here you can see the on line 22, you have you have a set of tests related to testing. On line 33, you have a set of tests related to build. And on 38, you have set of tests related to static checks. If you do that, then afterwards, you can say that if there are only changes, for example, to documentation, you perhaps don't need to test the actual code. You don't need to run the functional tests. So you skip all those tests on line 22. You don't run them at all, which should be the optimization. But you still want to test the static checks because you want to build the recommendation, for example. So you can do that with this mapping. Basically, you get groups of expected tests, as well as you can filter and not run tests that are not needed for this pull request. Anyway,
Yeah,
to wrap it up, the basic infrastructure is there. It should allow what I just said. You can like split or partition the repository to paths or file names or whatever regular expressions of changes. And if given pull request changes or touches just those files, you can again map them to expected tests to be tested, and you can skip the remaining tests easily. What's missing is to do this mapping, and I expect those who know more about like which code requires which tests to do that. If you like need some details, ping me ideally, and I can help you with that.
Cool. Thanks to Cash. Yeah, that was a very nice feature that we introduced, and we hope to save a lot of to speed up the process of merging pull requests, because we will have, for certain in certain case we will have less jobs running. That means less probability of fail due flakiness or infrastructure on CI and so on. We want to avoid this situation that we have today of running everything for any contribution, even if the contribution is small, when it's for a given, just a given part of the source code, like documentation. And by running it, we are by running all the jobs, we are spending resource. We are risking the CI to fail and having to rerun again and so on. And yeah, this is something that we probably should be work on the next cycle of improvements for the CI. So, okay, the last goal that I wanted to mention here is the work on the policy and documentation regarding several things like jobs that are required or not, and when to promote or demote them. Policies regarding ownership, when to include new jobs to the pool, and so on. Even yesterday we were discussing about some of those things. I don't think that we finished that already. I mean, I think there are still things that we should be discussing and mostly document, but what we have now, at least in my perspective, is a good basis for the CI. Maybe Steve can talk more about those policies later, because he has been driving this initiative. So, in summary, I think we can close it, this issue, and look for the next priorities for, or the priorities for the CI from now on. Is there any comments or questions at this point?
I'm wondering what your view would be of, as you mentioned, we got 1 day where we got green CI. I wonder what your view would be of extending this a little bit to try and say our aim would be to get 2 days or 4 out of 4 days in a week of CI before we do this, because I don't think that we've done this exercise of looking at the failures. Well, we definitely haven't, because like we know that the cryo tests have been failing for every day for over 3 weeks. So under the Taylor-Bird culling rules, like that would be a job that we should skip temporarily. So I don't know if you think, yeah, I'm reluctant to go, oh, let's say it's done when we've got 90% of the way there, whereas we could just try and finish it off. Obviously, there's always going to be new issues that come up and new failures, but it feels like if we could leave on a almost green, then that would be good, or almost always green.
Yeah, so instead of having like dropping dropping the jobs that failed 50% of time, we maybe increase it a little bit to 80 or 9.
So I'm not necessarily saying we even need to do that, but we haven't done the exercise of dropping the jobs that fail 50% of the time recently. So I was suggesting, should we try doing that one more time, see if we can get green before we kind of close this out?
Okay, yeah, it sounds as a good idea. Yeah, makes sense too.
Yeah, and we can potentially use like the dashboard. Well, I guess you got the script. You can use the script to run it, but in future, I guess we could use the dashboard to identify things, and then there'll be a follow-up question probably on the two of us because the cocoa tests of non-TE cocoa tests have started being flaky. So, but that's beside the point. If it's not making the grade, then we should try and skip it, and then it's up to the maintainers of those tests to order to reintroduce things.
So yeah, maybe we can keep it running for the next 2 weeks or 10 days, maybe. What do you think?
Yep, I think that sounds good.
And then once we have the green again, we can close this and open the new initiative.
And we
I think
disable
that
the CI. So we're
sorry.
green forever. Once we're green, we disable the CI, and then that's always green.
Yes. It'll be hard to be always green, right? Yeah, but I need to at some point to shift the mentality from disabling to get the CI almost green to actually fixing the CI, because disabling is you know, it's a fast measurement that we can take, but we are basically covering the problem. We should really seek for fixes and ways of making the, and by work on fixes, I think that we can make the jobs more fail proof, or you know what I mean. Of course, we had so many jobs when we switched from Jenkins to GitHub. Then we had a bunch of new jobs running, and they started failing all the same time. At the time, it makes sense to disable unstable jobs and find a minimum set of jobs that we could, okay, those are the most stable jobs, and let's rely on them for CI. And now that we are almost close to this minimum stable or almost stable jobs, I think we should thinking about increasing again the coverage, but adding jobs, stable jobs to the pool, and start thinking, really switching the mindset to, okay, now it's time to fix the problems and not just cover the problems that we find along the way.
Yeah, so I guess a mechanism or mechanisms might help that is, we talked about adding maintainers for required jobs. So if we have to skip certain tests, well, I don't know, maybe it would just be that they'd already be not required, but maybe the maintainers can help. But I think having some sort of regular review of what has been skipped, whether that's as an AC meeting or we have an ad hoc or a regular scheduled once a month Kata CI meeting to review it, would be good. Well, obviously we need buy-in, same as everything, but like one of the ones I saw on the list, CI fix, was the kata deploy test that ran on GARM, and I don't think we run anything on GARM anymore. It's already been migrated over to the free runners, so that suggests that that issue we can just close and kind of solves itself. But yeah, trying like reintroducing in PRs or something, people like there's some Mariner tests that were failing. So obviously someone like Aurelian, who is a maintainer of the Mariner tests, we could try assigning to him and say, oh, can you rerun these? They might well be that they've already been fixed. Oh, it has actually. That one's been closed. So that's an example of where it went well. Is the folks looking after it have looked at it and gone, oh, let's get these working. So I guess the more challenging thing is when there's just areas like there's a bunch of VFIO tests I know were in fix and run monitor and tests and stuff like that where there's not necessarily a clear-cut owner. But yeah, I guess at least if we review the backlog of test fixes that regularly, that might help. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the jobs that I disabled, and probably new ones that we should be introducing in the pool. We should have this rule of the job. If you want to enable again, or if you want to add a new job, there should be a maintainer.
Mm-hmm.
We should not be introducing jobs that has no maintainers. Otherwise, all those policies that we created won't work out.
Yep.
Right. We don't have a do we have a formal list of maintainers versus jobs at this point?
No, we don't.
No.
So that was one of the activities that we wanted to do as part of the Boston University initiative, because we wanted to list maintainers on. So yeah, having a mapping of maintainers for jobs, which some of them are easier to do than others, like the architecture ones, for example. The S390X jobs, Choi is the maintainer of them. But for other jobs which are just looking at like an area, like Kata Monitor, I don't know. It might be that some of these things are areas that, like metrics maybe is a good example. Metrics was added a long time historically. We've had multiple conversations about, well, is it even providing value when it fails? Most of the time it's the CI that needs restarting the node it runs on, but sometimes there's an actual failure of the metrics and then we just go and bump the number and then it passes. So having a more discussion about these areas and the value they provide and stuff would be useful as well. Finding time for all of that is a challenge. But
Yeah. Yeah, by the time that we started discussing about the maintainers, we will also be discussing about or reassessing the jobs that we have now, right?
yeah, which might be interesting with the runtime RS if we're adding new CI jobs. Is that a time we can try and identify maintainers? I don't want to block runtime RS CI testing, but as a new job comes in and becomes required, under the proposal, we would need a maintainer. But yeah, something worth thinking about.
Yeah, the runtime, the CI for runtime RS will be probably our focuses as well on the next cycle, right?
Yeah, I would expect so, yeah. Although we obviously we want to continue coverage, like if new features most of the new features in Cocoa are not runtime features. They go into like image RS or the guest components or the agent. So that's common with, it's not adding to the diff, but we obviously want to make sure we've got good coverage of features so that when we do port those tests over to runtime RS, we've still got good coverages. So I don't think we want to say we'll only focus on runtime RS.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. What else? Obviously, we should be improving the solution that Lukasz provided us for the execution of the jobs. This is something that we discussed in the past, also allowing users to running just a subset of the jobs by using labels or comments. I don't know if this is something that we will have hands enough to work on, but this is something that is needed, right? Or is
So that's
wanted.
been talked at as part of the Boston Uni initiative.
Okay.
And equivalent of these, just to explain for people, we've got the OK to test label at the moment, which triggers all the tests to run. Aurelian was talking about some sort of GitHub bot where we could be a bit smarter or do more complicated things. So then you might have OK to test Cocoa, which runs all of the Cocoa tests, or OK to test runtime RS, which is one thing, but I think an also equivalent or potential equivalent would be around Lukasz's selective CI. You could see that we could do quite a lot of that behavior in an optimized way where we could, with the rules, and as long as we get the kind of YAML files defined correctly, we can say, oh, look, this PR only contains changes in runtime RS. So let's have a group of runtime RS CI tests, and they are the required tests for this change, which Lukasz can correct me, but I think that was the idea of some of that mapping. So we might be able to reduce that, but the OK to test Cocoa might still be useful. For example, if we make a change to image RS, it impacts the Kata agent. So logically, Kata agent changes would probably trigger nearly everything to run. So if you just want to test it out beforehand, then OK to test Cocoa might let you do that. So there is still some value in a specific targeted test subset.
Yeah. If I could summarize the goals in terms of CI, or the goal in terms of CI for the next cycle, is we should be refining what we already started on the Taylor Bird initiative. So work on the policy, assigning maintainers for the jobs, trying to somehow fix the jobs that we disabled, and also improve the new or the gatekeeper, and then the running the jobs by I forgot the name that Lukasz used. It is by selective CI. Yeah, the selective CI, right? And of course, the runtime, this increasing the coverage for the runtime RS CI.
Yeah, and I guess maybe it's a slightly different initiative, but the work that the Boston Uni team are doing, I think getting the dashboard.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I forgot it.
improved also would be that's I guess that I think that project continues until mid-December, so might not run until the whole of the kind of next PTG cycle. But yeah, that I think trying to we probably want to take over that initiative as well once it's once the Boston team are finished. So ensuring that that is working to help us be able to measure our kind of targets from a CI point of view would be important as well.
Okay. Well, that's my understanding. And now I'd like to open for the community to say your impression about CI. Be gentle with us, right? And things that you wish to have in CI, ideas. So yeah, I'd like to use the remaining of time that we have to hear from the community. What are your thoughts about CI and what we should be work on?
I was wondering, what is the like, what is the reason for jobs being unstable? Or is it like every case of instability has a completely different reason, or can it be summarized somehow? Like network, being unreachable or stuff?
Yes, sometimes we have such as kind of problem with the infra. We call it infra. For example, some tester needs to install a package and the repo is not available, then it fails. There are other situations where on the test, mainly for the Kubernetes test, we create a resource on Kubernetes, and there are places that we don't always check for the resource to be available, and then sometimes it is going to fail. It depends on how fast the code executes. So this is another kind of, how can I say, a pattern that we have in terms of errors. Other kinds of errors, let me think about it. Yeah, we have many of those problems regarding timeouts, for example. We have 1 minute to wait a resource to show up, and for a external reason, we don't control the networking or the machine that are allocated by GitHub, for example. It will take more than 1 minute and then it is going to fail. And when you run the same job again, after some few minutes or even the next day, it is going to pass because this is just a temporary fail or networking stuff. Those are the kind of errors that I have seen more frequently on CI.
So would it be possible to at least write the jobs so that the job only goes red when the final check fails, like the check that is the reason for the test being run, and if anything else happens during the run of the test script, just mark the job, let's say gray, like we don't know.
You mean to distinguish between test error and test failure, right? I don't think that is available in GitHub.
Yeah, so we we had a discussion about this on, I don't know, it was the last CI call or it was on the Coco CI call or the AC call. I think it was the last AC call with Aurelian around the dashboard, and we talked about the idea of doing auto reruns and having a distinction between what passes first time and what passes on a rerun. And yeah, there was a question about whether something like Prowl might give us more intelligence there, but it might be that we could do something funky around parsing and understand if it's input setup rather than test. But yeah, I think this stuff potentially goes in the wish list for the CI dashboard of features we'd like to see, like filtering of I don't know if filtering is the right word, but classification of failures maybe. But yeah, as Lukasz says, it's not easy because GitHub doesn't kind of gives you it passed or it failed. So you need to dig into logs and stuff if you want to do more than that.
Okay, so that's unfortunate if it's a limitation of the framework. Because I mean it kind of undermines the whole idea of CI, right? Because like CI not being green should be like a reason, you know, everybody should be, you know, interested and working to fix it. Whereas if CI is basically red all the time, then it's kind of like it defeats the purpose.
Well, with regards to that, I really like the idea of having test author, not author, but you know, people related to tests, because when you have that, then for example, we like when we are looking at the results regularly, we can just poke people, hey, you know, out of 5 recent runs, 3 of them failed. You should do something about it, because it actually really depends on projects. I've seen many projects with green CI, but once nobody cares about the failure, you never can improve that.
Yeah, and green not always means that you have a good coverage. In our case, I think that we run a fairly good amount of tests on Kata containers, and then we have this, of course, that problem is that to maintain that amount of tests running, it's very, very hard. Yeah, the selective CI that Lukasz implemented was kind of we are trying to mitigate that problem, right? Because now we can run just a subset of the jobs instead of running all the jobs all the time. And we can think about other ways of mitigate those fails as well. When we had the jobs on Jenkins, we used to install Kubernetes. We had our own script to install Kubernetes. Now we don't do this anymore. But anyway, we noticed that it was in some occasions we were having fails to do networking and blah blah blah. And what we did was we introduced retries. So we had some retries on some parts of the CI, and if it fails, we used to wait some time and run again. It worked well. This is something that we can also think about here on if we could detect places where we think that, okay, if we retry those operations, we will probably succeed the second time. maybe we can decrease the amount of fails as well. But this is a little bit a more handcrafting solution, because you need to really look at the source code and make the analysis of where it's failing frequently, and then try to implement the solution in the source code directly. So I would say retries, it's a nice way to sometimes fix some of those problems.
And I think, yeah, the key thing to note is, as you mentioned about the coverage, I won't say we've got too much coverage because I'm not sure you can, but because we've got such a wide spread of jobs, like 298, that's where the selective CI comes in. Because if you only have a 1% chance of a network blip or something like that, and so your jobs pass 99% of the time, if you run 300 of them on every change, then statistically you're likely to see failures. So we're kind of need to work at either having less than 0.1% chance of failure, or we need to see how we can cut down the number of related failures. So for example, if you make a change that only impacts doc, we don't need to run all of the E2E tests because it's not going to be impacted. So that means if some of the E2E tests, which are the ones that are most likely to have infrastructure issues, none of those are triggered, then your doc changes, we might still want to run the static checks to do the spell checker and stuff. Not only will that be a lot shorter and a lot quicker to run, the chances of hitting failures should be much lower because they're not running the higher risk infrastructure related tests. So I think that is definitely part of the key. The key next phase is to start trying to, now the gatekeeper work is in, to start trying to leverage it more and do that classification and categorization of tests, so we can start to say, and maybe we just start with low-hanging fruit like a docs test, and we go, if it's only impacts doc, then just run the static checks and the build and the CI can be skipped, and that will probably itself save us quite a lot of running time, probably quite a lot of credits from Azure for running the E2E tests, and frustration of unrelated test failures coming in.
Frustration is the right word to describe the CI, right?
Maybe let me just explain one thing. Don't forget that CI stands for continuous integration. The GitHub, I mean, we moved to GitHub Actions. The GitHub action is designed to do continuous integration. That's why it doesn't allow like distinguishing between workflow issues and the actual test failure. That's one thing I can see with multiple projects, but here is really visible because you have lots of workflows which in my eyes are not really continuous integrations. They are like quite complex. That's what belongs to Jenkins, which has tools like automated detection of failures, and it can either retry or it can say yes, this is a known bug, and it just texts things as works, etc. So in my eyes, I can see a benefit of like separating the tests and running just subset of tests, because then you like bring back the good old continuous integration, which means test what's changed and like really immediate actions, like maybe it should be closer to that. So we should fake it a bit, but you cannot really you cannot turn continuous integration into full pre-release testing. And that's what I think how CI looks like in Kata Containers. It's like not pre-release testing, but it's almost like that. Like you have lots of detailed tests in there, which tend to fail.
Yeah, that's true.
And by the way, there is this step too. If you don't run all the tests, it would be nice to have a way to run those for given releases. So for example, if you want to identify afterwards whether it broke in this pull request or that pull request, we need to be able to provide that. And for example, that's something I'm not sure we can do with GitHub directly, right?
I don't think so.
Because for certain workflows, if we have an entry point, we can just say, okay, run it with those parameters, and it will give you roughly the same result as for running the PCI. But just one thing that needs to be taken into account as well, like to be able to reproduce stuff with known versions.
Yeah, reproduce when it comes to reproduce CI, it's mainly locally. It's very hard with the GitHub actions. But maybe this is a topic for another day because we are on top of our. Should we close this session? Ildiko, are you still there?
I guess we probably, and maybe we can chat about it offline, fine. But one of the things we want to do is write up those next steps, because yeah, I'm not sure if Ildiko has been able to document the last few points, or CI next phase actions, maybe, or goals. So I guess we had exploit selective CI and integrate it.
And guys, sorry if I may just one comment. It's on us. Unfortunately, we didn't have the time to look into it thoroughly, but we need to revisit the ARM CI. So
yep.
all the ARM options. So as an action point, I would add the ARM CI as well, assigned to us.
Cool. Thanks. And I know there's some folks from the ARM team who are interested in getting more involved. So might be able to get some input from them. Were there any other things than those points? I'm sure there was. Fine, that we talked about on the goals. But yes,
yeah,
dashboard improvements.
Dashboard improvements. The jobs that we disabled to somehow revisit them, fix or simply drop forever.
Okay.
I think it's a good list.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. I think any more than that will struggle. So do people think there might be value in a regular Kata Containers CI call? We have it for Coco project, which obviously does have an overlap with Kata, but we have a weekly meeting there. I'm not necessarily proposing we need to have that for Kata, but if we had a kind of once a month meeting for people who are looking at CI to review progress on this, do people think that's would be helpful? Would anyone show up?
In my opinion, it would be helpful.
Maybe
would suggest. Yeah, please go ahead, Anastasios.
sorry, maybe a bi-weekly meeting, maybe once every 2 weeks.
We can put it on the list.
And given the large amount of calls we already need to attend, what about having a topic during the AC meeting for that?
Yeah, I think that's what we discussed. I have a feeling at the last vPTG, I brought the suggestion up, and I think we said we would try and use the AC meeting more. So yeah, maybe we need to just try and get that
That's exactly
penciled
what you're
in.
writing, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think at last PTG we'd had quite a lot of AC meetings which were very short and ended early, but we tend to have gone the distance recently. But yeah, maybe we just need to prioritize a kind of review slot for that. So, and we have talked about CI on the AC. It's not that we've not talked about it at all, but maybe having some of these goals as a community. So we've got the goals around 4.0 release and goals around CI, which obviously there is a related linkage. But yeah, that'd be good. Okay.
Yeah, at some point, if we have like a team that is really super interested in taking care of CI, this can go out to a separate meeting out of the AC.
Yeah, and
until we have such a team, AC is the most responsible for that to happen.
Yeah, and it's probably worth mentioning if you are particularly interested in CI, and I know probably most of those folks are already on it, but the Coco CI call might be interesting to join, like stuff like the dashboard has come out of that call because a lot of the Coco CI is in Kata CI anyway, so there is definitely a strong overlap. So it might be that we are talking about more. We try and talk about more of these pieces in Coco CI, but obviously there might not always be overlap in what we're actually trying to discuss there. But yeah, if people are interested in that, feel free to contact myself or Viner, and we can send you the details. Okay. Any other last thoughts on either CI or any topics we haven't talked about yet on vPTG that we want to, in case we need a kind of another spillover session? Okay, well, thanks for joining and the inputs, folks. Oh, are you back, Ildiko? Or
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
oh, I just said, are you back? We weren't sure if you were busy on the other call, so we
Yes.
were about to wrap up, but I thought
Yes, I'm
I'd check
sorry.
and see if you're okay.
It's all good. Obviously, both communities are finishing at the same time, so I needed to speak at the other one for like 3 minutes. To double check on next steps. So we are doing the Coco join session on Thursday still is the plan, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. I will update the PTG event page with the two communities are meeting on Thursday, and yeah, great discussions today. Thank you all. I followed most
Cool.
of it. I obviously just stepped away when I was needed.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, folks, and speak to you on Thursday, if not before.
Thank
Oh,
you. Have a good rest of your
thank
day.
you.
Thanks so much, guys.
Bye-bye.
Everyone,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
bye.